Hello, hello. I am here with Phil Burt. So we're going to do a Q&A, answering your questions that you've asked. This is to do with saddle width and length and how that is affected in the bike fit. So the question is, if I get a bike fit with a certain brand saddle with a different shape, will that affect the fit spec? So basically, if you're getting a bike fit with one saddle and you then choose a different saddle, is that going to affect the fit of the bike?
Yes, unfortunately. But basically, I know after 10 years of doing this, I now realise that I was probably trying to change people's positions to fit the wrong saddle sometimes, and the other way around sometimes. Yeah. So I think if you've got a really good position and you're deciding to change saddle, for example, the new trend towards short nose saddles, so specialised power, there are other ones, if you put an ISM on or something like that, that basically they tell you that you've got to set that saddle back 2-3 centimetres, because basically the part that it's meant to be using, the setback will be different. Setback being how far your saddle is behind your bottom bracket. So if you can measure that really accurately, and there are some tools out there to do that, then they're fine, But sometimes just even the change in the width's a really interesting one, because all of a sudden, if the saddle's a little bit wider at the front, that may be better for you overall, but is the tilt right then for you to get, you might need to tilt that ever so slightly so you can rotate forward onto the part you need. Saddle changes can then change the whole bike.
Because there's so many different types of saddles. It's just so many different types, and they are going to affect.
Yeah. And we're all so individual, and that's why no bike company's been able to come up with a very simple rule of thumb of what you choose. Yeah. Saddle width is important, but some of those very large studies that have been done have shown that the smallest woman wanted the widest saddle, and the biggest man wanted the narrowest one. So there are some general rules,
but they don't always
stick.
Don't always go for it. Yeah. So next question is it okay to pedal with pointed toes, or should I practice flattening my feet during the pedal stroke?
100% no, because this myth that you can coach pedalling is it is just that, it's a myth. Pedalling is such a complicated thing, and I've been through this with the pleasure I've been teaching elites. We've had great cyclists who have horrible sort of negative spots in their pedal triangle, and you can try and coach that all you can. It generally doesn't change that much, because we pedal the way we pedal. It's your preferred movement pathway. It's what you are. What I can say is, though, if your saddle height's way too high, that lady could be pointing her toes because she's literally reaching to the pedals, and that's the only way she can do it. Equally so, someone who says they drop their heels too much, is their saddle height too low? The brain often optimises the knee as the one joint to preserve in that, and it'll absorb things at the ankle. So what you can say is your bike setup parameters can can influence the way you pedal. Exactly. Yeah. Is there a certain type of way of pedaling? No, everyone's different. There are many ways to skin a cat, and basically riders produce power in very different ways. There's more optimal ways generally, but I've seen people who have completely different pedaling styles, yet still both Olympic champions. It's an interesting.
That says it all.
It does.
And
if you want to look at one thing, an interesting anecdote there, maybe to the viewers, is mountain bikers tend to have the most even distribution of power. I'm not going to say better, but they produce power more evenly around the whole pedal stroke. That's because when they're mountain biking, they learn that they have to maintain traction in the back wheel going uphill. Yeah. So they become much better at staying seated and keeping the power going all the way around the bottom of the power side. And some people think that's like, people like Cadel Evans, who came to road cycling, Peter Sagan. You look at the mountain bikes who come to road cycling and seem to be very successful. Yeah. So it's whether you could argue that having a bit of mountain biking in your program makes you a better pedaler overall. Interesting.
Maybe I'll get on the mountain bikes. Don't know, I'm a bit scared of it, to be honest. I'm like, no, I'm too scared.
Well, the one thing I've learned is that during the injury studies we've done at British Cycling over the years, and you look at overall things, is that everyone, you look at mountain biking, it's actually quite a dangerous sport, and then you think, well, what is it? It's got trees and rocks around it. So when you come off, it's a little bit more dangerous sometimes.
A little bit more. I don't know, if you're going downhill at 70k an hour. I don't know which I'd prefer. I think that is pretty much it. One more quick question. If you're getting back pain, lower back, but not right down at the base, what could be the number one culprit to look at bike fit wise?
So back pain.
So if you're getting back pain, lower back, but not right at the base, so kind of like mid back. Yeah. What could be the?
So the first thing to say is that cycling is good for backs in terms of it's a low, as I mentioned, a low eccentric for sport. but it set up wrongly, it could cause back pain or could worsen it. I think the 3 key culprits I would look at there is your overall drop to the front. So, because if you're too far forward and all the way down, you're going to have to ask your back to do a lot of flexion to get there. Second thing is look at your saddle and how it's orientated. If your nose is up on your saddle, that's definitely going to lock your pelvis backwards, and then you have to do all the flexion from your lower back and into there, and that can put a strain on it. And then just overall reach. So if your saddle's too far back or your reach is too far, you just ask the back to do more. If you look at those 3 things and get to the sweet point, and often it's not what people think, lower and further back can often be just as bad because of the things I mentioned in terms of load. If you get that saddle in the right place at the right orientation, so it's almost underneath you, supporting you and letting you adopt the position that you want to work in, that can be it. So the key thing to remember is that if you had a back problem, I'd put you on a bike to get over it. But it has to be in the right position.
Exactly. Perfect.
All right.
Well, I'll put a link to Phil's book below on bike fix. He wrote the Bible on bike fitting, so I'll leave a link to that below if you tell me about it. It is, it's true, it is. But yeah, I'll leave a link to that below if you want to have a quick look at that, and I'll leave all Phil's details as well if you want to get in touch and have a bike fit. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you again. We'll do some more questions, if that's okay with you, for another video. So see you next time.